The massive alien scout ship drifted through space like a silent predator, its dark hull barely visible against the star-filled void. Inside the vessel's sterile corridors, Survey Officer Veltar moved with mechanical precision toward his workstation. Another day, another primitive planet to catalogue and dismiss. Veltar's three eyes focused on the holographic display showing Earth's solar system. His species, the Keplerian bureaucrats, had been mapping and classifying civilizations for over 2,000 years. They were very good at it and very bored by it. Most species followed predictable patterns. They either destroyed themselves before achieving space travel, or they became advanced enough to join the galactic community. Earth seemed firmly planted in the first category. Computer, begin standard. Threat assessment protocol, Veltar commanded in his monotone voice. The ship's sensors immediately went to work, scanning every electromagnetic signal, every heat signature, every piece of technology on the third planet from this unremarkable yellow star. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Kim Tae-ho was having the worst night of his research career. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, and his eyes burned from staring at computer screens filled with incomprehensible data. The new deep space monitoring array had cost the government millions, and so far all it had detected was space junk and cosmic radiation. "Still nothing interesting out there?" asked Dr. Park Mira as she walked into the cramped control room. She carried 2 steaming cups of fresh coffee, which made her Tai-ho's favorite person in the universe at that moment. Same old background. "Noise," Tai-ho replied, gratefully accepting the coffee. "Sometimes I wonder if we're completely alone out here. Maybe all those science fiction movies got it wrong. Maybe there really is nothing else intelligent in the galaxy." Park Mira settled into the chair next to him and pulled up her own set of monitoring screens. "Give it time. The universe is a big place. If there's anyone else out there, we'll find for them eventually." Neither scientist had any idea that at that very moment, someone had found them first. High above Earth's atmosphere, Veltar was completing his assessment with practiced efficiency. The humans had managed to split the atom and build rockets that could escape their planet's gravity well, which put them slightly ahead of complete primitives, but they were still using chemical fuel for propulsion, still fighting wars over resources that were abundant elsewhere in the galaxy, and still polluting their only habitable planet. "Fascinating," Veltar muttered, though his tone suggested he found it anything but fascinating. "They've discovered nuclear fusion, but use it primarily for weapons. They've identified hundreds of potentially habitable planets, but haven't colonized a single one. They have global communication networks, but can't agree on basic cooperation." The computer's analysis was equally unimpressed. Population, approximately 8 billion. Technology level, early space age. Threat potential, minimal. Unity index, catastrophically low. Projected timeline to extinction, 3 to 5 centuries, assuming they didn't destroy themselves sooner. Veltar began dictating his official report. Species designation, human. Planet designation, Earth, Sol system. Classification, Class 7 low threat. The species shows minimal technological advancement beyond basic nuclear physics and primitive space travel. High internal conflict rates suggest natural extinction within 500 years. Military capability is limited to planet-bound weapons with no evidence of space-based defenses. He paused, reviewing the data one more time. The humans had some interesting quirks. Their entertainment media seemed obsessed with alien invasions and space warfare, which was odd for a species that had never encountered either. They spent enormous resources on military technology and strategy, even though their wars were all fought against their own kind. But quirks didn't change threat assessments. Recommendation: place on standard 50-year monitoring cycle. No immediate action required. Species poses no threat to hegemony interests or galactic stability. As Veltar completed his report, something strange happened on Earth. Dr. Kim Tae-ho's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips as every screen in the monitoring station lit up like a Christmas tree. For exactly 0.3 seconds, the most powerful electromagnetic pulse in recorded history swept across their sensors. "Mira, are you seeing this?" Tae-ho's voice cracked with excitement as he started recording everything. "Park." Mira was already pulling. Up analysis programs, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The signature is completely unknown. It's not solar radiation, not cosmic background, not anything in our databases. For 30 minutes, both scientists worked feverishly to understand what they had detected. The pulse had been brief, but incredibly sophisticated, containing layers of data transmission in frequencies they had never seen before. It was almost like someone had been scanning them. "Should we report this to the Defense Ministry?" Park Mira asked. Tai Ho hesitated. "Without more data, it would sound like science fiction nonsense. Let's analyze it more first. We need to be absolutely certain before we start claiming we've detected alien technology." Neither scientist realized they had just recorded humanity's first contact with galactic civilization, and neither the aliens nor the humans understood that this moment would change everything. In space, Veltar's ship completed its survey and prepared to jump to hyperspace. His report was already filed. Earth's fate sealed in bureaucratic indifference. The galaxy's most dangerous species had just been classified as harmless. It was a mistake that would reshape the stars themselves. 3 years had passed since that mysterious electromagnetic pulse, and Dr. Kim Tae-ho had never stopped thinking about it. What started as curiosity had become an obsession. In a secret government facility buried deep beneath the mountains outside Seoul, he and his team had been working around the clock on the strangest project in human history. "Are you absolutely certain this came from that signal?" asked General Han Dong-soo, staring at the sleek metallic device on the laboratory table. It looked nothing like any human technology he had ever seen. Kim Tae-ho nodded, exhaustion clear in his voice. The electromagnetic pulse contained detailed technical specifications hidden in what looked like random noise. It took us 2 years just to decode the first layer of information. This propulsion system is centuries ahead of anything we have. Park Mira stepped forward, holding a tablet filled with test results. "General, we've successfully tested the engine on unmanned craft. It works exactly as the specifications indicated. Someone out there essentially handed us the blueprints for faster-than-light travel." The general frowned. Something about this felt wrong. "Why would aliens give us advanced technology? What's the catch?" "We don't think they meant to," Tae-ho admitted. "The signal appears to have been a scanning pulse, probably routine for them. But their scan was so detailed that it accidentally included technical data from their own systems. They basically gave us their secrets without realizing it. What none of them knew was that at that exact moment, Admiral Koreth's pacification fleet was dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. The hegemony had finally gotten around to claiming this unremarkable system and its primitive inhabitants. It should have been the easiest conquest in military history. Admiral Koreth was a veteran of 47 successful planetary acquisitions. He had conquered warrior species, hive minds, and technological civilizations that had been spacefaring for millennia. Subduing a bunch of primitive humans should take about 6 hours, including paperwork. "Open communications to the planet," Koreth ordered from his command chair. The bridge crew moved with casual efficiency, preparing for another routine day at the office. The standard surrender demand began broadcasting toward Earth in dozens of languages, translated by the ship's computers. "Primitive inhabitants of D, the third planet, you are now subjects of the galactic hegemony. Prepare for immediate pacification. Resistance is futile and will result in the complete sterilization of your world." On Earth, every radio telescope, satellite dish, and communication array simultaneously received the message. In command centers across the planet, military leaders who had been preparing for this moment for 3 years sprang into action. Lieutenant Com. Manda Lee Jin-woo stood in the underground command bunker beneath Seoul, watching as screens filled with incoming data. "Confirmed multiple alien vessels entering our solar system. All units, this is not a drill. Execute Operation Starfall immediately." The response was not what Admiral Koreth expected. Instead of terrified surrender messages or desperate pleas for mercy, every major government on Earth simultaneously declared war. Not surrender, not negotiation, not even an attempt at communication. "Just immediate total war, this is impossible," muttered Koreth's tactical officer. Our computers still classify them as Class 7 low threat. They shouldn't even have weapons capable of reaching orbit. Admiral Koreth was more puzzled than concerned. Perhaps their primitive computers malfunctioned. Launch the first wave. A show of force should restore their sanity. The first wave of hegemony landing craft descended toward Earth like falling stars. Each craft carried 50 soldiers and enough firepower to level a human city. It should have been a massacre. Instead, Captain Choi Soo-jin watched from her fighter cockpit as her squadron rose to meet them. Her aircraft didn't look like much. Humans had only had 3 years to build them, after all, but appearances could be deceiving. All squadrons weapons free, she announced over the radio. Let's show these aliens what happens when they pick on the wrong planet. The first alien landing craft exploded in a brilliant flash of light, then the second, then the third. Within minutes, the sky over every major Earth city was filled with burning alien wreckage. Admiral Koreth stared at his tactical display in complete disbelief. How are they doing this? Our intelligence reports show they don't even have energy weapons. His tactical officer's voice was shaking. Sir, they're using some kind of hybrid technology. It appears to be based on our own propulsion systems, but modified in ways our computers can't predict. On the ground, General Han Dong-soo coordinated the defense from his command bunker. Reports were flooding in from every continent. The alien landing craft were being systematically destroyed before they could reach the surface. Sir, the enemy appears to be using standard hegemony tactical doctrine, reported Colonel Kim Ye-jin. They're following their own military handbook, exactly as we predicted they would. Han smiled grimly. 3 years of preparation were paying off. Execute Phase 2. Let's see how they handle some genuine human creativity. Above Earth's atmosphere, Admiral Koreth watched his invasion force burn. Half his landing craft were gone, and the humans were launching some kind of counterattack. Ships that looked like primitive rockets were somehow matching the speed and maneuverability of his own fighters. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet, his communications officer announced. Put it through, Koreth ordered, expecting air surrender offer. Instead, Lieutenant Commander Lee Jin-woo's voice filled the bridge. Attention, alien fleet. You came to our world uninvited. You threatened our families. You declared war on humanity. We accept your declaration. Surrender now, or we will destroy every single one of your ships. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Koreth staring at his tactical display as more of his fleet disappeared in balls of fire. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were winning. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Koreth gave an order he never thought he would have to give. All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance. We need to reassess this situation immediately. The species marked as low threat had just handed the galactic hegemony its first military defeat in over 1,000 years. The emergency session in the Hegemony High Command Center had been going on for 18 hours straight. Admiral Koreth stood before a holographic display showing the tactical disaster that Earth had become, while dozens of alien species representing the galaxy's most powerful civilizations demanded answers. Explain to me again how a Class 7 species destroyed half your fleet, growled Commander Zephyros, his reptilian features twisted in disbelief. Your report makes no logical sense. Admiral Koreth's hands trembled as he manipulated the holographic replay. They knew exactly what we were going to do before we did it. Every tactical maneuver, every standard formation, every protocol we followed, they had a counter ready. Intelligence Officer Nexdal stepped forward, his forearms carrying data, tablets filled with disturbing information. High Command, I've spent the last week analyzing human communication networks. What I discovered changes everything we thought we knew about this species. The room fell silent as Nexdal activated his presentation. Images of human entertainment filled the holographic display. Movies, books, television shows, video games. All of them featuring alien invasions, space battles, and interstellar warfare. They call it science fiction, Nexdal explained, his voice filled with growing horror. For over a century, humans have been imagining every possible way an alien species might attack their world. They've written millions of stories, created detailed scenarios, and developed counter-strategies for situations they thought were purely fictional. General Krath, a towering insectoid warrior, clicked his mandibles dismissively. You're telling us that primitive entertainment defeated our military? Not entertainment, Nexdal corrected. Training. Look at this. The display shifted to show human military academies, where officers studied scenarios that looked remarkably familiar to standard hegemony tactics. They've been preparing for interstellar war for generations, even though they'd never encountered alien life. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Kim Tae-ho was having the most productive week of his career. The captured alien wreckage from the failed invasion had provided more advanced technology than humanity could have developed in 1,000 years. This is incredible, he told General Han Dong-soo as they walked through the massive hangar filled with alien debris. Their power systems are completely different from anything we imagined, but somehow our modified engines interface perfectly with their technology. Park Mira looked up from a partially disassembled alien fighter craft. It's like they built everything according to the same basic principles we discovered in that original scan. We're not just copying their technology, we're improving it. General Han nodded thoughtfully. How long before we can have our own fleet operational? The first ships are already being tested, Tae-ho replied. But General, there's something else. The aliens' communication systems contain detailed star charts. We now know the locations of dozens of their military bases and supply stations. Back in the Hegemony Command Center, the situation was getting worse by the hour. Intelligence reports were flooding in from across local space, and none of them were good news. Sir, we've lost contact with the Proxima Supply Depot, reported a nervous communications officer. The last transmission mentioned human ships in the area. Commander Zephyros slammed his clawed fist on the table. How is this possible? They don't have faster-than-light travel. Actually, sir, they do now, Nexdal said quietly. Analysis of the battle footage shows human ships using modified versions of our own propulsion technology. Somehow they've reverse-engineered systems that took us centuries to develop. Admiral Korath felt a cold dread settling in his stomach. What else do your intelligence reports show? Nexdal activated another display, this one showing intercepted human communications. They're not fighting like any civilization we've ever encountered. Most species either surrender immediately when faced with superior technology, or they fight conventionally until overwhelmed. Humans are doing neither. The display showed human tactical communications from the recent battles. Short, efficient exchanges between military units that demonstrated a level of coordination that shouldn't have been possible for a species that had never fought in space. Listen to this. Nexdal played an audio recording. Lieutenant Commander Lee Jin-woo's voice filled the room. Echo Squadron, execute maneuver Delta 7. Tango Wing, prepare for boarding action on target Alpha. Remember, these ships are now our ships. Boarding actions? General Krath's compound eyes widened. They're not just destroying our vessels. They're capturing them, Admiral Korath confirmed grimly. Every ship we lose becomes part of their fleet. They're not just defending their planet anymore. They're building an invasion force. On Earth, Captain Choi Soo-jin was leading her expanded squadron through a training exercise in Earth's orbit. Half her pilots were flying captured alien fighters. The other half were in newly constructed human ships that combined the best of both technologies. Remember, she told her pilots over the radio, the aliens fight by the book, their book. We've read their book, and now we're writing our own chapters. Colonel Kim Ye-jin stood in the captured alien command ship that now served as humanity's primary space operations center. Around her, human technicians worked alongside scientists to understand and improve every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on. Ma'am, we've successfully interfaced the alien navigation computers with our own systems, reported one of her technical officers. We now have detailed maps of every major hegemony installation within 50 light-years. Kim, Ye-jin smiled. Excellent. Prepare a full briefing for General Han. I think it's time we stopped playing defense and started showing the galaxy what humans can really do when we put our minds to it. Back in the Hegemony Command Center, Nexdal was delivering his final, most disturbing finding. High Command, there's one more thing. Human military doctrine includes something they call total war. When threatened with extinction, they don't just fight to defend themselves, they fight to completely eliminate the threat. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't just defending Earth. They were preparing to take the war to the hegemony itself. The species once dismissed as harmless had become the galaxy's newest predator. The hegemony's response was swift and overwhelming. Within 2 weeks of the failed Earth invasion, Admiral Zhou found himself commanding the largest military fleet in galactic history. Over 3,000 warships from 12 different species, enough firepower to crack planets and boil oceans. "This ends now," Zhou announced to his assembled fleet commanders. "No more underestimating these humans. We hit them with everything we have all at once. Complete orbital bombardment followed by systematic ground invasion." Commander Zephyros nodded his massive reptilian head. "Agreed. 3,000 ships. Against one primitive planet. Even humans can't overcome those odds." But as the massive fleet jumped into hyperspace toward Earth, they had no idea they were walking into humanity's trap. Captain Park Jun-ho drifted silently in the asteroid belt, between Mars and Jupiter, his stealth ship completely hidden among the floating rocks. Around him, dozens of other human vessels waited in perfect silence, their crews barely breathing, as they watched the alien fleet approach Earth. "All units, this is Ghost Leader," Park whispered into his radio. "Enemy fleet is exactly where we expected them to be. Operation Mousetrap is a go." On Earth, the approaching alien armada looked like a second sunrise as thousands of ships filled the sky. News broadcasts around the world showed the massive fleet, and for a moment, it seemed like humanity's brief resistance was about to end in total destruction. But General Han Dong-su wasn't worried. He stood in his command bunker, watching the tactical display with the calm confidence of someone who had planned for exactly this scenario. "All defensive positions, hold your fire," he ordered. "Let them get closer. We want them to commit fully before we show them what we've really been building." Admiral Zhou smiled as his fleet took up bombardment positions around Earth. The humans had put up a brave fight, but mathematics was mathematics. 3,000 ships against whatever pathetic defense force the humans had cobbled together. "Begin." "Orbital bombardment," he commanded. "Target all major population centers simultaneously." That's when everything went wrong. The first indication that something was amiss came when Commander Shin Ha-young's voice crackled across every hegemony communication channel simultaneously. "Attention, alien fleet. You are surrounded. Surrender. Immediately or face complete destruction." Zhou's tactical officer stared at his screens in confusion. "Sir, that's impossible. Our sensors show no significant human fleet in the area." Then the asteroid belt came alive. What the aliens had assumed were just floating rocks suddenly revealed themselves to be camouflaged human ships, hundreds of them, built in secret mining facilities throughout the solar system over the past 3 years. Each one bristling with weapons that combined human ingenuity with alien technology. "Impossible!" Zhou shouted as his tactical display lit up like a fireworks show. "How did they hide an entire fleet?" Captain Park Jun-ho's stealth ship dropped its camouflage as he led the first wave of attacks. "All units, weapons free, show. Then what happens when you threaten our home?" The battle was unlike anything in galactic military history. Human ships appeared from everywhere, hidden behind moons, disguised as space debris, emerging from underground bunkers on planets the aliens didn't even know were inhabited. Each human vessel was smaller than its alien counterpart, but they moved with deadly precision and coordination. Lieutenant Commander Lee Jin-woo coordinated the defense from his captured alien flagship, now bristling with human modifications. Bravo Squadron execute flanking maneuver 7. Charlie Wing begin boarding operations on targets of opportunity. The aliens found themselves fighting a completely different kind of war. Instead of the traditional ship-to-ship combat they expected, human forces used tactics that seemed to come from nowhere. Small, fast ships darted between the massive alien vessels like angry wasps, targeting weak points that shouldn't have been known to anyone outside hegemony engineering. Admiral Zhou watched in growing horror as his overwhelming numerical advantage evaporated. "How are they doing this? They've had 3 years to prepare. We've had 3,000 years of military experience." His tactical officer's voice was shaking. "Sir, they're not fighting like any civilized species. They're using our own ships. Against us, modified with weapons we don't recognize, and sir, they're winning. The tide of battle became clear when Commander Shin Hai-young led her marine boarding parties onto the alien flagship. Her soldiers moved through the ship's corridors with brutal efficiency, using weapons that fired rounds designed specifically to penetrate hegemony armor. "Remember," she told her troops over their helmet radios, "we're not here to destroy these ships. We're here to take them. Every vessel we capture makes us stronger." Within 6 hours, the largest military fleet in galactic history was in full retreat. Over half the alien ships had been destroyed or captured, and the remainder were fleeing in complete disarray. But the real shock came when the aliens realized that Earth's defense had been just the beginning. As Admiral Koreth's battered fleet limped away from the solar system, they found human ships waiting for them. Not just a few vessels, entire fleets positioned at strategic jump points throughout local space. "Sir, we're receiving multiple human transmissions," reported the communications officer. "They're coming from everywhere." The transmissions revealed humanity's greatest secret. Earth had never been their only stronghold. For decades before first contact, human colony ships had been quietly establishing outposts throughout nearby star systems. Not the grand expeditions that alien civilizations usually mounted, but small secretive settlements designed to be completely undetectable. Captain Choi Soo-jin's voice came through from the Proxima Centauri system. "This is the Proxima Defense Force. We've taken control of all hegemony installations in this sector." Colonel Kim Ye-jin reported from the Wolf 359 system. "Wolf Base is secure. All alien military assets have been neutralized or captured." The pattern repeated throughout local space. Human forces had been preparing for this war for years, building hidden bases, stockpiling weapons, and training soldiers in secret locations that the hegemony never knew existed. Admiral Koreth stared at his tactical display as reports flooded in from across 12 star systems. The humans weren't just defending Earth, they had quietly taken control of an entire region of space. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his tactical officer. Koreth looked at the scattered remains of his once mighty fleet. 3,000 ships had been reduced to fewer than 800, and human forces were still hunting the survivors. "Send a message to High Command," he said quietly. "Tell them we need to rethink everything we thought we knew about warfare. The humans aren't just defending their planet anymore." He paused, watching as another of his ships exploded in the distance, destroyed by weapons that his computers still couldn't identify. "They're conquering the galaxy." 2 years had passed since the Battle of Earth, and the galaxy was a very different place. The mighty galactic hegemony, which had ruled unopposed for over a millennium, no longer existed. In its place stood something that would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier, a confederation of free worlds protected by human military advisors. Ambassador Yoon Jae-min stood on the bridge of the flagship, indomitable, looking out at the massive space station that now served as the headquarters of the reformed Galactic Council. The station itself was a symbol of the new order, built using human engineering principles, but incorporating the best technology from dozens of different species. "Are you ready for this?" asked Admiral Seo Min-ho, adjusting his uniform as he prepared to accompany the ambassador to the most important diplomatic meeting in galactic history. Yoon smiled confidently. "As ready as anyone can be to reshape an entire galaxy." The reformed Galactic Council chamber was packed with representatives from over 200 worlds. Species that had been enemies for centuries sat side by side, united by their shared experience of liberation from hegemony rule. At the center of it all, the human delegation took their seats with the quiet confidence of people who had earned their place through blood and victory. Former hegemony worlds weren't the only ones present. Dozens of species that had been hiding in the outer rim, too weak to resist hegemony expansion, had emerged to join the new galactic community. The humans had found them, protected them, and given them hope for the first time in generations. Ambassador Yoon stood to address the assembly, his words being simultaneously translated into over 300 languages. "Representatives of the free galaxy, we gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as partners in building something better than what came before. The response was mixed. Some species applauded enthusiastically. The Altarians, whose homeworld had been strip-mined by the hegemony, were among humanity's strongest supporters. Others, like the Centauran Trade Union, watched nervously. They had profited from hegemony rule and weren't sure what human leadership would mean for their business interests. In the back of the chamber, former survey officer Veltar sat with the remnants of the old hegemony bureaucracy. His hands shook as he updated the threat assessment files on his portable computer. Earth's classification now read in bold red letters, "Absolute priority, do not engage under any circumstances." "The old ways are finished," Yun continued, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. "No more tribute systems. No more forced labor. No more planets stripped bare to feed imperial greed. The human philosophy is simple. We came in peace, you came for war. Now we're keeping the peace our way." The implications of that statement weren't lost on anyone. Human fleets now patrolled trade routes that had been plagued by pirates for centuries. Human marines had liberated slave colonies that the hegemony had ignored. Human engineers were helping rebuild worlds that had been devastated by imperial exploitation. But it hadn't all been peaceful. The remnants of the hegemony military, led by what was left of their high command, had tried to organize resistance from hidden bases in the outer systems. Those bases no longer existed. General Han Dong-su had made sure of that. The campaign had been swift and brutal. Human forces, now equipped with the most advanced technology in the galaxy, had systematically hunted down every hegemony stronghold. But unlike their former enemies, humans didn't simply destroy their opponents. They offered a choice: surrender and join the new order, or face complete annihilation. Most chose surrender. Commander Shin Hae-young now led the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, a mixed unit of human soldiers and alien volunteers who had proven their loyalty during the liberation campaigns. Her forces were stationed throughout the galaxy, ensuring that the new peace wasn't just words on paper. "The human model works," reported Captain Choi Soo-jin during a briefing to the Council. "Crime rates in human-protected systems have dropped by 90%. Trade has increased by over 300%. For the first time in galactic history, smaller civilizations don't have to fear being absorbed by larger ones." But not everyone was happy with the new arrangement. "You speak of peace," challenged Representative Korth of the Vegan Assembly, "but your fleets patrol our space. Your soldiers occupy our stations. How is this different from hegemony rule?" Admiral Seo Minho stood to respond, his voice calm, but carrying an edge of steel. "The difference, Representative Korth, is that we don't demand tribute. We don't steal your resources. We don't enslave your people. We simply ensure that no one else does either." The Admiral activated a holographic display showing human military deployments across the galaxy. Every human base, every patrol route, every military installation exists for one purpose: to protect the freedom you now enjoy. The moment you no longer need our protection, we'll leave. "And when might that be?" Korth pressed. SEO's smile was cold. "When every species in this galaxy proves they can coexist peacefully, without our supervision. Based on recent history, that might take a while." As the session continued, reports came in from across the galaxy that reinforced the human position. The Rigel system reported successful completion of their first free elections in over 2 centuries. The mining colonies of Kepler 442 announced record production levels, now that they were working for themselves instead of imperial masters. The research stations of Proxima Centauri had made breakthrough discoveries in faster-than-light communication. But perhaps the most telling report came from Dr. Kim Tae-ho, now director of the Galactic Scientific Cooperation Initiative. Human technology sharing programs have advanced galactic civilization by an estimated 500 years in just 24 months, he announced. Species that were barely able to achieve orbit are now building their own interstellar vessels. Ambassador. Yun concluded the session with words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. The age of empires is over. The age of cooperation has begun. Humanity didn't seek this responsibility, but we'll carry it as long as necessary. We've seen what happens when the strong prey on the weak. We've decided that won't happen anymore." As the delegates filed out of the chamber, former survey officer Veltar remained in his seat, staring at his computer screen. The species he had once dismissed as low threat now controlled the fate of trillions of beings across hundreds of worlds. His final report entry was simple. Threat assessment error critical. Human species vastly underestimated. Current status, galactic superpower. Recommended action, complete compliance with all human directives. Outside the station, human exploration fleets were already preparing for their next mission, pushing into unexplored regions of the galaxy, carrying both olive branches and fusion warheads. They would find new civilizations, offer friendship and protection, and if necessary enforce peace at the barrel of a gun. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate a species that spent centuries preparing for a war they thought would never come. Humanity had inherited the stars, and they intended to keep them safe.